Hey there, welcome to the Wonderfully Knit podcast. I'm Heather, and this is my video podcast about what it's like to be me. I'm a non-traditional pre-med student in an application cycle, and I'm a crafty individual who just can't stop doing that. So, welcome. Show notes, as usual, can be found at wonderfullyknitpodcast.blogspot.com. You can also find show notes on Ravelry at our group on Ravelry.com. If you search under the Groups tab for Wonderfully Knit Podcast, 3 words, you should be able to find our group where I post show notes as well. And we have a Facebook page, Wonderfully Knit Podcast at Facebook. If you have any questions or you have some ideas that you would love to share, I love that. Please come share them. Half the reason that I have this podcast is that I'm hoping to get, some crowdsourcing of good ideas going on. And I want to hear your thoughts. Your thoughts as well. So yeah, let's get on to the podcast. So right now, projects. Oh dear. Yes. Okay. So sock, because of course I have a sock, because of course. So here's a sock. Finished I have turned the heel and I'm holding the stitches while I'm working on the other sock because I'm knitting this in tandem because that works out for me. So I picked this up again over the weekend. I had about this much done of the first sock. So I've knitted again. This pattern is called Echinacea. This was done, I'll link to this in the show notes as well, by the way. I try to link to everything I talk about. So the pattern is Echinacea. Whoops, there we go. You can see there's a lining panel and it's repeated on the back side. And then there's this panel right here, right? And you can see that these are supposed to be models of the Echinacea flower. And I really, really am enjoying it. It's a bit of a challenging knit, which I like sometimes. Takes me out of myself a little bit. But it does kind of restrict the amount of knitting I can do necessarily and where. It's an enjoyable knit. So the pattern may not be available now. I'm not sure. I'll check up on that, but I'm not sure. The pattern may no longer be available if you were not in the Sock Sniper for 2013, I think it was. I've had that pattern a while. This is the first time I've knit it. So Sock Sniper is a contest. It's a fun little contest. It's basically a game of assassination. For those of you not familiar with that or concerned about that kind of game, the way it works is that everybody fills out their dossier with likes, dislikes, things like, pattern, or not pattern, but the way you like your socks to knit, what size your socks are, what size is your ankle, this kind of thing, and other likes and dislikes. And everybody then, before they start, gets a dossier, right? And then the patterns come out, and you're supposed to start knitting on a certain day. And when you're finished, which is as soon as possible, you mail your finished socks off to the recipient, the person on your dossier. And if they receive your socks before they have finished and mailed theirs, then they are dead. And they're supposed to send you the unfinished socks that they have been working on and the dossier for the person they're working on. And so it's kind of the last person alive wins. And so that was pretty fun. But a set of patterns was released to that. And this is from that set of patterns. And again, I will link it in the show notes. I'm really enjoying it. It's, like I said, it's a mildly challenging knit. I don't do these formed socks a lot anymore. And I really need to. They're fun. Okay, so that's project number 1. Project number 2 actually is not this one. Let me get one second. I left it over here. So here is the baby sweater that I was knitting on last week that I said that I needed to finish up and I was going to show you this week. Now, here we go. I used inexpensive buttons because baby. And I used adult size buttons, right? Because this is clearly, it's a pretty cute baby sweater actually. Pretty cute. I like it a whole bunch with its little shawl collar. Oh, see? And a lot of people think, oh, well, it's a baby sweater. We should put baby buttons on it. I am going to put forth to you that the only people who say this are people who have never tried to use their adult hands to put baby sweaters on a baby. So they're pretty small, but they are adult hands. I have adult hands, and when I try to use these adult hands to button baby size buttons on a baby sweater, yeah, that ain't happening. No, no, because babies, they like to kick and squirm while you're dressing them, and that makes it all the harder. So anyway, so there's that with its little buttons on there and all of its cabling and fisherman aspect. Love it. And its little shawl collar. Extra love it. So let me show you how this works. I was talking about the button band last week. So what you do is you take and you sew in a length of ribbon. And what you can do if you want to is you can just stop there and put your buttons on the front, right? And then just be sure to sew through the back of the ribbon. And that way your buttons are less likely to sew out. However, pull out rather. So what I like to do is actually, it's a couture technique that's been around for a very long time. And the idea is that you put another button on the inside. And so instead of putting wear of pull on any fabric at all, even the fabric of the button, you've put the wear only on the buttons themselves. So this button is exactly on the opposite of this button. And instead of just sewing each one to the ribbon, I've sewn them to one another, through the ribbon to one another. So it helps. Every sweater that I have done this on is in beautiful shape. There's no pulling out of shape at the buttonholes or in the button band at all. Works beautifully. And so I will be sending that on to my friend here in a little while. And I'm very pleased with how that turned out. I think the buttons go. Now there is a way to use baby buttons if you really don't want to. If you really feel that it's appropriate that you not sacrifice that aspect of proportion, and that is to put the baby buttons on the outside, but put the actual functioning buttons on the inside of the button band. So basically, your buttons sit on the outside, but they're not surrounded by any more fabric. So basically, instead of buttoning it this way, let me see here. There we go. Instead of buttoning it this way, such that each button peeks out from fabric, like from 2 layers of fabric, you put it this way, right? This is not going to work very well. Instead of this way, you do it this way. Not here, 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 not here. Okay, that's the best I can do with what I got on hand. All right, next project that I have actually not knit on this in quite a while. This is one of those projects where I keep doing a chunk and then putting it aside, and maybe a month or two later I'll pick it up and I'll do a little chunk and then I'll put it aside. I wanted to show this to you guys because I did pick it up and did knit a few stitches on it this week. So this is just this is a shawl. This is from the Ananke shawl by Shannon Squire. Again, links in the show notes. The yarn I really like. I think it lends itself to this. If you guys look up the pattern itself, it's actually a very simple triangle shawl. It looks super cozy, and it'll go with these colors. It'll go with almost everything. The yarn, I think, lends itself well to that simple kind of homemade look that I'm going for with this shawl. The yarn is Blue Moon Socks That Rock. It's their Silky Socks That Rock. Blue Moon Fiber Arts, rather. Blue Moon Fiber Arts Silky Socks That Rock. This is their Farmhouse colorway, which I believe Stephanie Pearl McPhee has also used before on some projects on her blog. I originally bought this yarn to use for socks for my husband, and then it got here, and I went, and I looked some stuff up online, and it seems that a better use for this yarn is to use it for things that aren't socks. And I would like for this yarn. This yarn is beautiful. I would like for this to last for quite a while. It's a nice knit. The yarn is very soft on the hands, of course, and knitting anything with silk in it is nice. I like it. And again, links in the show notes for that. So that is my projects this week. Other aspects of projects and stash entirely are found in this next bit. Now, did I pick up anything made of yarn? Fiber? No, I really didn't. But come with me and I'll show you what I did get. Oh, baby chicks! Look at the yours. Peep, 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 peep. Peep, peep, peep. That one's staring right dead at the camera. What are you doing? What are you doing? Anyway, so that is this week's stash enhancement. We just got them on Monday. We just got them on Monday, and the chicks that you were looking at are all of the Plymouth Rock kind of varietal. They're all hens. They'll be pullets rather at this stage, I believe. And we have raised chickens before. They were different types. They were red sex links, for which you'll actually find a video in my first one of my first videos on this whole channel. And some black sex links and a Rhode Island red. And these are all barred rock. Those are going to be the darker chicks. And then 2 white rock. This particular breed was made up for making a whole bunch of eggs as well as a whole bunch of meat, while also tolerating a cold winter very well. And also, I don't know if you've ever seen a picture of a barred rock full-grown hen or rooster. They're beautiful. They're really pretty animals. So that's really great too, because I like a pretty animal. Looking forward again so much to having my own eggs. I cannot even tell you how much I'm looking forward. I got to check their water. The thing about having chicks, and the reason that I'm raising them inside, is because you have to look in on chicks at least 5 or 6 times a day when you get them. Otherwise, what you really want to do is pick up some juvenile birds. You're going to be paying more, but what you're paying for is the loss of chicks that's already happened, as well as the person's time in caring for these chicks, because caring for young chicks is rather time intensive. I have them in here, and the reason that I have the grating on top is because I have cats. The grating is rather heavy, so the cats can't get in. The cats know that now, and so they don't even bother. It's not that they aren't curious, it's just that they know they can't get in. So our new stray had to learn that. The stray we're kind of fostering. And he was very interested. He said, "This is very, very interesting. Is this interesting for my mouth?" And we had to convince him that no, they were not interesting for his mouth. And so instead, when he's in here, he might guard them. He might peek in every once in a while to see if they're still interesting. And maybe, are they now interesting for my mouth? No, they are not interesting for your mouth. So that's my stash this week. I thought you guys might enjoy seeing a little bit of chicks. In addition, my vine includes some little more, a little more video, just real short, from the day we got them. We got them on Monday. So we spent the weekend making sure that everything was ready for them. We talked to the guy on Saturday at our local co-op, which is literally just around the corner from us. And he was going to hold some chicks for us, and we went and picked them up on Monday after we got everything cleaned, because in between batches of chicks, you need to clean and bleach everything so that you're not accidentally passing disease or anything between them. My husband is actually going to be building a new coop because our old coop, we didn't like how it worked out. We're going to be taking it apart and reusing the bits that we did like, and hopefully getting this one right. So, on to pre-med moment, and this time it's mildly somber. I was looking around at Student Dr. Net last night, and that is a place that can be full of really, really useful information, but it can also be full of stuff that make you go, oh my gosh, is this really for me? And this can be one of those experiences. However, I do feel that it's worth it to mention, because the stakes are serious. When you're going and you're trying to get into med school, a lot of times we think because we can get into med school, we should get into med school, and that's just not the case. It's not merely that you need to have a passion for medicine and you need to be a smart person. You need to also believe that you are the kind of person who can continue to be a doctor, who can go on to residency, who will successfully apply for residency. It is not enough to merely have ability. You also have to have, I don't know, a certain amount of personality, a certain kind of bent almost. And I'm not trying to be real Gnostic about this, but there are expectations of you from residency programs when you start applying for the residency. I talked excitedly about the match last week and about how much I love the parody videos that tend to come out around this time, um, and one that talked about match. And the fact is that today there are about 1,000 people who are desperately trying to get into any residency at all now, any at all, because they didn't match the first time around. A lot of people can say, oh, well, they should have done this and they should have done this and they should have done this, and they would have been getting into a residency. But the fact is that there are not enough residency positions to go around for the number of people who are applying for them in any given year. Part of this has to do with Congress not funding enough such residencies. Part of it has to do with people applying to residencies for which they are maybe not suited, and this is the way they find out the hard way. In this case, what I saw was a person who was naturally very disappointed and very anxious. At the end of a second application year to try to get a residency, this person had nothing. That is something we have to consider. We don't have to like it, but we have to consider it. How are we, even if only for, how do you avoid that? You know, so it's useful almost as a case study sometimes. At the same time, it is also useful from where I'm sitting as a view of, and this is not going to sound great, but frankly, how we can delude ourselves into thinking that it is most appropriate for us to do this one thing when everything around us is saying, you know, maybe you should try something different. Maybe this is not a specialty, or maybe this is not a list of residencies which are good for you. We all need to maintain a certain amount of flexibility and being responsive to our situations. I'm not going to be a surgeon. That's not what I'm going to be. It doesn't mean that I don't like surgery. I actually probably would like it a lot. At the same time, I have to look at my situation. I'm a 39-year-old woman. I will be, let's see, 4 years plus 7 for a general surgery residency. That's 11 years. I will be near AARP type age before I'm ready to practice on my own. And that's assuming, you know, I don't want to go into a subspecialty or a fellowship or anything else that you could think of. I have to adjust my expectations for the reality that I'm going to be living. And I have to consider, you know, the deep ramifications of possible failure. How am I going to adjust that? Just for that. I mean, yeah, I'm going to be trying my darndest, like everybody else. But I also have to listen and know when it's time for me to seek a different avenue. Okay, well, not surgery. So clearly, what else should I do? Well, you know, I'm also interested in rural living. I love rural living. I like being rural, and I like rural communities. So I'm looking into rural opportunities like internal medicine or family medicine. These are things I looked into before I even started. Let me just tell you, before I even started, and looked at their residencies and the places that they would probably have residencies, and I was like, I think this might be for me. And again, the facts of my life, the facts of my family's life, and all of that have played into that decision. And that decision may change because that's what I know. That's from the information that I know now. As I get into med school, I'm going to get more information. What if I decide to do something else? It's possible. What if it works out that I find myself living in a city again and, oh my gosh, it's amazing. I can't move back to the country again. I don't think that's likely. I really like it out here. But, you know, nonetheless, we have to address what's in front of us. And really, I think that's the takeaway from the particular post that I encountered last night. Being a pre-med involves trying to be as smart as possible about your future. We should remember that the ramifications for failure in our future, in that future that we're trying to form, are such that we need to maintain that level of intelligence about not merely our subjects, but about ourselves. And that's a hard lesson, and it's not fun. And so next time, I will try to talk about things that are a little bit more fun. And in the meantime, you guys, I hope you have the best week possible between now and then.